Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and bring this to order here. We're starting a bit late. We're going to try to give these items the time they deserve. Thank everyone for coming. I'm going to shuffle around the agenda a bit if I can. We're going to start this, ladies and gentlemen, with House Bill 1084. Representative Chokas. To the members of the audience, this is the first time we've seen this measure. It came out of the Rural Development Council. We did pass that electronically to the committee members with the notice, and with that introduction, I'm going to turn the floor over to Chairman Chokas at this time. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. I bring to you a substitute for House Bill 1084. It's LC 500088S. I passed out a little synopsis of the bill. HB 1084 will provide for the creation of the Georgia Endowment for Teaching Professionals to foster public-private partnership for support for post-secondary teaching professionals in high-demand disciplines. This will also create a board of trustees to carry out its policy. Currently, the technical college system of Georgia is having difficulty hiring and retaining highly skilled instructors in high-demand disciplines. These instructors are hired from the technical college system in the private sector because their skills are in such demand. In turn, it's also had a negative impact on the economic development of our state, especially in rural Georgia. HB 1084 will allow its trustees to solicit funds privately through grants and donations for the purpose of supporting outstanding teaching professionals in high-demand courses and disciplines. It will also be used to develop and expand educational opportunities in these rural areas. Courses and discipline identified by the board as in demand for the purpose of promoting economic development. The Endowment for Teaching Professionals will be a public-private partnership charged with soliciting funds from foundations and from the federal government and from the private sector in the form of grants and matching grants and so forth. The Rural Development Council met. Co-chairman Rick Jaspers was there, and they had their final meeting in Americus, Georgia this past December, and one of the recommendations they made was for us to be able to find a method of funding outside of tax dollars from the state to support our technical college system of Georgia, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Chokas. At this time, are there questions? There are, and Chairman Jaspers, I'm going to ask you to come over. We're lacking committee officers. Is the immediate past chairman of this committee? I'm going to ask you to chair this for a few. I'm being called down to present a bill in Ways and Means. So if you could do that, and I will be back before we need to move on the item.
Chairman Chokas, I have just a couple of comments. Thank you for working with us on this bill. I know it was at a late date. That's my fault for getting it to you late. But I think it's this bill, if I'm not mistaken, or I know that when the Rural Development Council met across the state, that finding specific instructors in high-need areas was difficult.
That's correct.
Just precisely because of the pay. They could go outside of and work in a different world and get paid more. And they're hard to find, and this bill really addresses that and gives them the opportunity to do that. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to call out on a couple of folks in the sitting behind you that have talked about this from the Metro Chamber and Georgia Chamber. I don't know if they're signed up to speak or not. Have been very thoughtful about wanting this to go through.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to add that Amy Lancaster King from the Metro Chamber will be happy to come up here and show her support. And I also want to thank the Metro Chamber. I mean, when we think of the Georgia Chamber, we think of everybody in the state. We think of the Metro Chamber, we think of Metro Atlanta. But they have been extremely supportive and helpful. They see that Atlanta's growth coincides with rural growth. So I appreciate their input and their support.
Okay. Good. The members have some questions. Let's just start down the end. Representative Burnow. Is that 12 or you just wave? Oh, Perkle. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing this. This is a tremendous example of how we can leverage public and private funds in order to meet high demand needs. And you have one of the most innovative technical schools in the great state of Georgia.
Thank you.
In your district, and we have heard from him a couple of times. He presented in higher education appropriations last week and did a great job. Here's a question that I have. So let's say let's say there's a high demand need for an underwater welding program, which there won't be in America, so I wouldn't think. But if I'm just throwing a particular high, and it's difficult to get an instructor that would do that, and you raise the funds for that person. They come and teach. They're an instructor at your technical school. They will then be a technical school employee.
That's correct.
So my question would be in regards to the funds will be raised partially privately.
That's correct.
How about the retirement plan that would go for said employee? Would that be is that an issue with, or would that be taken care of with part of the funding mechanism, the private funding mechanism for teachers' retirement that they would be?
That's a really good
entitled
question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I can get back to you on it. We're looking at this funding as more like an endowed chair that they have in the University System of Georgia, where they collect money and provide for additional funding to attract a scholar in that area. So as far as how it's going to affect their retirement, will they be involved with a teacher's retirement? I really can't say.
And that's just the concern I have. If I could just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay, just to follow that line of thought, because please do not misconstrue my comments, because I think this is an awesome idea. This is badly needed in some highly technical areas that will be of great benefit to our citizens. Just wanting to make sure that we fully think through all of the ramifications, including our responsibilities going forward with the retirement system.
Well, I'll be happy to talk with Tommy Benton and find out how that will actually occur. If they offset, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if they offset his salary or her salary, then they won't have to pay into the teacher's retirement before they'll be able to draw. But I would also like to add that welding, which you mentioned, underwater welding, we do have a preliminary course in underwater welding at Georgia Southwestern State University.
Do you really?
We got a tank, and one of the problems we're
Wow.
facing, and I'm going to mention this, is not when we have these high demand fields, and I know this personally because I'm on the foundation board at South Georgia Tech. We have the largest dropout rate in the welding program of any of the other programs. And the reason being is the private sector hires our students before they can graduate. And so if that's the case for the students, can you imagine how difficult it is for us to attract and keep instructors when they can go out and make six figures just like that?
That's right.
And thank you for the question.
Excuse me, number one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Choke is my seatmate. I am a part of the Rural Caucus, Rural Council, and we were very thankful to you for hosting us down in Sumter County last year. And I thank you for your work on this legislation. But my question is, with these appointments, although it doesn't state it, I sure hope there's an opportunity to ensure that individuals from the 3 HBCUs in the state of Georgia will be considered during this appointment time. Like Fort Valley State University.
So right now, it only includes technical.
Okay, hang on just a second. You need to identify yourself
I'm
because
so sorry.
I know you, but the
So sorry.
members may not.
I'm Amy Lancaster King. I'm Director of Workforce Development for the Metro Atlanta Chamber. So this bill is specific to the technical college system, so it wouldn't include the HBCUs that are part of the USG system.
Okay. Well, that.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, ma'am.
Since that's been brought out in that manner, I'm sorry, if we can still make sure we can remember rural Georgia during our appointment time. I realize the legislation states the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker will make those appointments, so I sure hope they keep in mind rural Georgia. I'm sure they will, but I just want to throw that plug out for rural Georgia. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to add that this shouldn't have any effect in the funeral home business. Thank you.
17. Is that your number? 17?
Oh, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Chokers,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you for bringing this bill forward. And I agree with the comment that was made earlier about the retirement. We want to make sure that we study that part very carefully. And my comment is similar to the representative comment here, but I want to make sure when you says that this would help to support teachers in high demand courses. And I want to make sure, are you talking about science, technology, engineering, and math? Are those the high demand courses that you're referring to?
No, ma'am, I'm not. I'm not talking about those. What we're talking about is the technical college system of Georgia, not K-12 and not university system. This just deals with the technical colleges. And we're talking about welding, truck driving, trying to think.
If may, let Ms. Lancaster answer that.
Okay.
Like cybersecurity, those types of things, emerging fields that leverage a technical certification or technical degree, that could be where the market, the professors or the faculty can make so much more in the market that it's not conducive for them to actually come in and teach, but we have a high demand there. And if that's where capacity to growing the programs is the constraint, is bringing on the faculty, that this is where it would address. So it's really up to the market, and that's where it leaves it to the board to kind of determine in those local areas what is that specific need. So in some areas it might be welding, in other areas it might be cybersecurity.
Okay, because when I saw high demand courses, I just wanted to make sure. And also, it says that it will be governed by a board of trustees. And the governing board, I guess I'm a little concerned because I don't see anyone there from education per se, like an educator. That's my concern with the governing board. And it also states that a 33-member advisory board. I'm encouraged by that because you are at least including the state's congressional districts, and I feel that I can have an input, in that. But with the governing board, I have some reservations about that.
Okay. Well, the governing board consists of 11 members. The commissioner for the technical college system of Georgia, I think would be highly qualified to represent the education since he oversees the technical college system. The governor also appoints, because this is part of economic development, the goal of this is to provide a workforce that can stimulate the economy and fill jobs in rural areas. So we've also got the Commissioner for the Department of Economic Development as a permanent board member. And then the governor appoints 3 additional members, the lieutenant governor appoints 3 members, and the Speaker of the House appoints 3 members.
I guess I am concerned because I've had some experience with trustees and board of trustees and the governing board, and then you have an advisory committee, and that's all they do to advise, but it's really, in my opinion, the governing board who makes the final decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions? Number 23, Representative Gardner.
Thank you very much. This seems like a really interesting idea that we should support. I think I'm like Representative Perkle, a little curious about the implementation. So this organization will be set up as a nonprofit, like a 501c3 or 501c6, one of those categories. And the issue of whether these endowed chairs, as you called them, will be eligible for retirement or the state health benefit plan. I mean, are they going to be employees in the traditional sense, and what is the impact on? And
Well,
it sounded like you didn't really have an answer.
The technical aspect is they will always be an employee of the technical college system. Now, the funding that this endowed chair, for lack of a better term, how that funding goes directly to the educator, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that'll be supplementing their salary and they'll have to pay taxes in another manner. I don't have the correct answer for that one.
I mean, I guess there are a whole bunch of ways you could do it. The
That's
foundation could subsidize the retirement as well, but it would seem important for us to know that. Do you anticipate that there will be state funds that would go directly to this organization?
The state funds that I envision that could go to this would be any type of matching funds or the One Georgia Authority. I don't see funds being appropriated. The purpose of this is not to be appropriated in our annual budget.
So I heard somebody mention something about a budget, line item budget. You don't anticipate that?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Okay. I heard some of the skills that are needed, and I immediately thought about computer programming and other kinds of computer things. But you're anticipating finding electricians and truck drivers and at basic levels. If they can immediately get a job to do underwater welding, is the underwater welding company going to train them then themselves?
No,
and
ma'am.
do we want to compete with them?
You want to answer that? Under the companies, well, I'll give you an example, and the example that we have is with linemen, the lineman program that we have down in Americas. And a lot of the line workers, especially, we experienced it during the hurricane when we lost power for a week,
Right.
They bring them in from all over the South. Well, that workforce is aging and retiring. And the electrical companies, the EMCs, Georgia Power, et cetera, they will have a job fair. People will want to apply, but then they realize once they get there, they're afraid of heights. And so we have a program at South Georgia Technical College that teaches them the basic rudimentary skills.
Pole climbing. Yeah.
Pole climbing, yeah, exactly, and digging up poles and placing poles and how to keep from getting electrocuted.
Speaking of poles, Representative Chokas, we're letting 184 be our long pole in the tent today. But pardon
I'm
me.
sorry.
I know that we need to vet it, and I don't want to stop that, but I do know that we have 2 other measures. One
Yes,
that
sir.
we've heard before, one that I have promised for almost a couple weeks here in terms of days to get to, and the hour's getting late. with that said, I want to respect Representative Gardner's and two other members' questions on this, keeping, an eye on this. This is a late hour
Yes, sir.
for this, and I don't want to move forward if the committee is uncomfortable with that. But the crux of this is to have an opportunity to form this organization and not lose another year. If the committee, it would surprise me greatly if whatever and as a general rule, I hate to do this, I know Chairman Jaspers would do that too, to say that there would be some changes at the Senate and this committee will have another bite at the apple. But I believe we will, and what I would suggest is that we kind of sort of stay at a 10,000 foot level.
Yes, sir.
The crux is you want to find a way to be able to further incentivize instructors in TCSG, much like this group did last week with the additional dollars to incentivize teachers to come into rural and underperforming schools. And this is a vehicle to do that. And so I would commit as chairman of the House committee that if we do want to move on this today, as it crosses over to the Senate, it's most surely going to come back as an agree-disagree, that we not do that just simply as disagree, that we have a larger hearing on an already passed piece of legislation next week, that if it does get to the floor, if it does come back from the Senate, that the committee will have its input, not just what would be three members of a conference committee. So with that said, Representative Gardner, do you have another?
No, I'm finished. Thank you. I think there are some things to be worked out.
Yes, ma'am, I agree. It's just at this late date, if we want to work on that, I'm going to take a couple more questions and I'll suspend 1084. We'll come back to it after we get to these other two measures. If you guys are willing to stay here today, I have nowhere to go. I just don't want to make these folks that have, we kind of had Representative Chokas jump the line there a bit. Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is, if you are in a high demand field and you are paid through this endowment, and then all of a sudden your field is no longer high demand, does your pay now all of a sudden drop back to the basic level of what everyone else is getting paid? Like maybe let's say after 2 years now, let's say you were making, I'm just throwing a number out there, $40,000 more than everybody else because you were high demand. Now that field is not necessary because trends change. So now that field is not necessarily high demand. In that next contract, am I now making $40,000 less than I made the year before, based on how this is set up?
Well, that would be left up to the Georgia, to the endowment trustees to determine that.
Yeah, no, I understand. So I guess what I'm getting at is we're just using this as kind of like bait to get someone there, but then once that field is not necessarily high demand, we don't care if they leave. We're like,
It's. You want to answer that?
Sorry. Potentially, it depends on if they are able to teach something else that is high demand too. So they could pivot, right? But the goal is to incentivize things that align with workforce outcomes and making sure that we have the instructors there to do that.
thank you.
Again, briefly, what the Rural Development Council saw is there were private sector folks willing to partner with us. This gives them a vehicle to do that. The way I see this, and again, the work to be done on this is compensation paid through this would not go through a state appropriation. It would be paid as a bonus. Therefore, again, as I sit here today, I don't see it going into a retirement type system. It would be outside of that. Much like there are employees in the university system today that are paid in the university system, but they get compensation from foundations that are set up, for additional duties that they perform. Thank you, Dr. Clark. Number 11, is that Chairman
Thank you.
Dempsey?
Yeah, thank you. I think there's some confusion I'm hearing about high demand and what that means in the technical college field. And this was something that developed very specially under our last governor, particularly as we tried to expand technical colleges throughout the state and the services that can be provided and to increase jobs and employability. So those designations, as I understand it, could change. They are to fill the need. So if we're having a shortage of, I believe preschool teachers was one of them. But if all of a sudden we have too many, it could be that option is not there, or that there's something else that we need more of. If all of a sudden we have more welders than we can possibly accommodate, we'll find another place where we can increase jobs. So it's that beautiful opportunity really that the technical college system has and can react to quicker than anywhere else. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. It's about being responsive.
Following up on Chairman Dempsey, because let me, a scenario and see if this works for you. I'm assuming technical college could have what I would call an adjunct professor type arrangement at a professional college. So assume someone has a skill in a particular area and is not employed by the technical college, but you would like them to come and work there in extra hours or for a temporary time. We would pay them their salary, but they wouldn't do it simply for that if there wasn't additional compensation for that short time. So it may just be a single cohort of students that pass through for this, but that bonus would go with them on a one-off. So it's not a question, Dr. Clark, of we would entice somebody there and bait and switch them. It would be for this particular need. Normally we pay a Professor X, but this is a high demand field we need. You wouldn't come otherwise if you didn't get X plus this. So this group, this foundation would be able to provide the plus in order to work that cohort. Then if there was another need for another 50 or 100, you would see if that works again. And this provides a partnership so that we provide sometimes the property, plant, and equipment. Industry helps us pay the instructor, and we build people that are ready for the future of work. Fair enough? Now, with that said, if there's not objection, I'm gonna ask that we unanimous consent lay this on the table so you can think about it as we work on these other lessons, because I know this committee can multitask. So you can think about this legislation. Now, Representative Chokus, what that means is you're going to get to hang with us for the rest of the afternoon. Welcome aboard. While we go to other legislation, if there's not objection from the committee, we'll just lay this on the table for unanimous consent for action later today. Thank you, Representative Chokus. Representative Bonner, are you here? We're going to call Representative Bonner forward for House Bill 995. We have two numbers too close together. 995. Do we have people who want to talk about that one? No. As Chairman Bonner, do you mind if I help? You worked with me greatly, but I worked on a couple of changes that you may not want to claim as your own. So I'm going to introduce the changes to the committee. We're working off LC 490228S. This is a bill. I'm sorry. Oh, you just moving your microphone around. I apologize. This is a bill that we worked previously. Significant changes were made on line 98. Little paragraph I, no institution. On the top of page 4, we have a bit of a new substantially and materially and substantially disrupt language. There were a couple of words here and there in the bill that changed, but I think Representative Bonner could go over that. And in this measure, we for the time being at least, I'm unconvinced as the need for the private action. The Senate version bill has that in there. We're sure to talk about this further later, but with that, I'm going to allow Chairman Bonner to present the measure, and we'll take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, working off of that, the LC that you mentioned, really the only the item to highlight, Mr. Chairman, is to have that discussion regarding lines 106 through 108, and then that appears again further into the bill. But generally, Mr. Chairman, we were agreeable to most of the changes that were made. Those changes came as a result of a number of hours meeting with the folks from University System of Georgia, as well as a few meetings with the chairman. But it's really, generally, we are okay. We'd rather have the cause of action in, and that's certainly something that we will continue to make a case for, so to speak, as we go forward. But really, looking at lines 106 through 108, there's just a challenge there for us, Mr. Chairman, where it says, provided, however, that nothing in this part shall be interpreted as preventing public institutions of higher education from requiring student organizations to comply with the rules and policies applicable to all student organizations. With that, essentially, even though it goes on to say that these policies do not violate the First Amendment, provided they don't violate the First Amendment, rather, it does essentially kind of flip the scenario to say that that the university's policies thereby trump anything the organizations do, and in our opinion, actually opens up the university system to more litigation rather than less, which is one of the intents of this bill, is to reduce the number of lawsuits brought forward against the university system.
Okay. Did you have anything further, or you want to?
Well, that really, Mr. Chairman, is the main point of contention in
Sure.
terms of the substitute. Everything else is agreeable, and we certainly understand the chairman's position that we need to make a stronger case for any cause of action that may come into play in dealing with either this or the Senate version.
Okay. You do have a couple questions, I want to ask one, because I want to try to understand. You'd spoken briefly in Chairman Bonner's defense. I worked on language because I know there was some serious questions about this section when we were last here, and I tried to listen to what I had heard from both from all members of my committee. I'm not going to go with both parties or both sides of the aisle. I'm going to say all members of this higher ed committee, because I think we may look at things different, but we all see people getting educated on our college campuses and in our technical institutions. So I had worked on that. So in Representative Bonner's defense, the last iteration of that came in the last 24 hours. What I tried to do in the start of the page is to find a balance to give the absolute right for people to assemble and congregate, because in my opinion, for us to have a First Amendment and embrace it, we're all going to be offended by what somebody does. To properly do that, to protect the First Amendment, in my opinion, it's to defend the right of people to speak their mind that I don't agree with. So we tried to do that. Now, in so doing, I realized that the university wishes to have rules and policies, and what I tried to do in a non-lawyerly way, I can't do that, a non-legal way, is to provide that the policies don't violate the First Amendment. I have asked the attorney to see if there's a better way to apply, and also do not violate state or federal law and so forth. So we're going to do that. Can you give me the committee an example that perhaps one that you shared with me earlier of why you think this would cause trouble, and let them think about it, and then we'll get to questions of the committee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to allow Matt Sharp with Alliance Defending Freedom to address that specifically.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. So I think the concern is, at the end of the day, which trumps? Is it the university's policies, or is it the rights of the student organizations we're trying to protect here? So a concrete example would be a university has a policy that says clubs can't discriminate based on sex. And let's say you had a group of women that said, we want to form a Republican women's club here on campus or a Democrat women's club on campus. Well, their rights that are protected would then be taken away, because the university could say, I'm sorry, you're violating our sex non-discrimination policy. You can't have that restriction on your ability to just limit your club to females who share your political leanings or anything like that.
And I just want to clarify, I'm not going to debate the bill, argue, but you referred to the political leanings, but you made it a women's club. Are you concerned about the gender discrimination or the political affiliation discrimination?
Potentially both. That's one of the issues is the scope of policies a university could adopt are.
And again, I'm going to have a little, and we're not going to get farther down here because most assuredly, we have a bill over from the Senate, and if this bill passes today, most assuredly, we will have further discussion between now and
Yes, sir.
April 2nd or 3rd, whatever that day is, that magic day that we're all looking for. But is it not true that on line 103, it says that they have to treat you equally and you can have your leaders and members, voting members, agree to not undermine the purpose or mission of your student organization. And isn't it true if they can't discriminate on you based on that your mission as a Republican organization or as a Democratic organization can be self-described, and therefore they couldn't, if you could enforce if you didn't agree with our beliefs, that the university couldn't tell you couldn't be an organization that had a certain political belief. Why are you not protected in line 103?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the issue is because then everything in lines 98 through 105 are then subject to line 106. It says everything we're giving is all subject to the university being able to adopt its own rules and policies that may override those. And I think it's that, provided, however, the university can then put limitations on all of these things.
Would you agree that would be a violation of the First Amendment and you would prevail in court?
I would hope so, but part of the purpose of this bill is to avoid going to court, and I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to help us along here. But isn't it not black letter in this bill? While it says provides, however, it doesn't prevent the university from requiring all students to apply by the same rules. It says provided further, such rules and policies do not violate the First Amendment. So if a university had a rule that violated the First Amendment, on its face, they would not be able to use that to discriminate. Is that not true?
That is, but it would require litigation to determine whether that policy violated
Is it
or
not true that any law sometimes requires litigation to enforce it?
Yes, Chairman, but we're trying to avoid that with this bill. I think that's part of what our goal is to limit that. And by having these clear instances where the rights of student organizations trump those policies, we're actually avoiding litigation down the road and avoiding these questions of whether this violates the First Amendment or not.
Again, I'm not trying to be argumentative. The First Amendment's been in place for over 200 years. It's litigated every week in this country. Saying something's protected by the First Amendment does not prevent litigation. What I'm trying to get at, and I'm going to go to questions here, is a firm black letter look so that if someone litigates based on that, a judge is going to look straight down at it and to right or wrong be able to issue a summary judgment on it. It's, I want it real clear. So if you can explain to us as we go, or between now and April 2nd, why we don't have that situation, then I'm more sympathetic. But in this case, you would have had me more if you wanted to talk about the gender issue because that's a protected class. I understand it. But let me yield to my members here. Number 22, is that Secretary of the Committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm gonna ask this question, and I also, at the appropriate time, would like to hear the USG's response on similar question. But the way I think I'm understanding this is that y'all's concern with the sub is that what you're attempting to do here would be. I'm not coming up with the right words right now. The rules and policies that the way that this sub is set up, the rules and policies that the university could create would only be qualified by the First Amendment and would not be qualified by your language that appears in the first part of Section I, which deals with discriminating against a student for a benefit or privilege or denying recognition. And that, in your mind, would the issue be resolved if somewhere around 108, 109, the provided language that appears on 108, that in addition to listing the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, that if language about the benefit and privilege and the recognition were included, that would further qualify those rules and policies. Is that would that metamorphosize this into something that what you're looking for?
Yes, in fact, I think one of the things we had discussed and that Representative Bonner proposed would essentially be taking that language about universities can maintain or require organizations to comply with the rules, policies, et cetera, essentially move it to the top of the page. Put that at the top of saying universities can maintain rules and policies applicable to all student organizations, and then say, provided, however, that they don't deny benefits or privileges based on those things or violate the First Amendment. And I think that would then go to your exact point. I think you phrased it very well.
So right now, your concern is that the First Amendment would qualify or limit a rule or policy, but the concept of privilege and benefit and recognition, that a rule and policy wouldn't be subject to that. And I would like to hear USG's response, if that's appropriate, to that, and what your what your thoughts may be on on why that would or wouldn't be something that would work in your minds. I apologize. I've kind of walked into the middle of this, and I haven't been at this committee much this session, but I'm trying to figure this out as we're going along.
Well, and just one response to that, I would say that, presumably the university system now adheres to the First Amendment. We make that presumption that they are. I will say that even given that presumption, we have had a number of cases against the university system in which it has been proven that those First Amendment rights of students have been violated. So I would submit to the committee that we are working from the presumption that the university's policies are currently in accordance with the First Amendment, but the facts have been shown to be different in certain cases. So we are not alleging that the university system writ large is intentionally trying to stifle First Amendment rights, but we are simply saying that we as the state of Georgia need to make sure that to the degree possible we protect those rights, every student. And we make sure that those policies are constantly reviewed to make sure that they are protecting those First Amendment rights. But I would simply submit that even working off that presumption, we have shown that those First Amendment rights have been violated in certain cases.
In some of those cases, it is not true that we were working off places where there were free speech zones, and then those have been deemed to be unconstitutional, and that is where we tried to, as a state or as a university system, they made an attempt that they thought this was in the best interest of the university community to do that, and those have been found to be unconstitutional. And quite frankly, we don't need a state law to say they can't do that anymore, because we have federal case law that says they can't do that anymore. So I absolutely agree with you. There are many places where we use belt and suspenders here and put in Georgia code again and in multiple times what is said in other codes. I would reference back into lines 87 through 93 of the bill. Specifically prohibits that the university has to comply with state and federal laws with discrimination and harassment, and from prohibiting or limiting or restricting expression that is not what they can and they can't do. So I guess what I'm trying to get is we're trying to move this to the question at a late hour is, I think we all wish to protect the First Amendment. We all don't think the university certainly in a systemic manner wishes to stifle it. Does that mean that after this bill, if this bill passes or this bill does not pass, that there will not be a situation on campus where someone makes a mistake? Absolutely not. People are human. It may be intentional or unintentional. Our goal here, and I think your goal is, I know your goal is, I've talked to you many times in the last few weeks, and thank you for all that time. I know your goal is to try to make it abundantly clear and to open up, the opportunity for everybody to be recognized, and we want to try to help you do that. We'll work on those that language. Number 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to first say thank you, Chairman, for your work on this bill and for hearing from all of your members. I have two quick questions, and I think I've got them down pretty precisely, if I could ask them. The first question is, there are about 37,000 employees in the university system of Georgia. There are 253,000 students. And I imagine there are tens of thousands of interactions between the employees and the students every day. I mean, is it realistic to think that there will never be mistakes, even pertaining to the First Amendment across a system that employs 37,000 people and has 253,000 students?
So if I understand your question correctly, will this solve every problem? And I would submit no. It would not solve every problem, because each one of those numbers you cited are people, and we understand that people do make mistakes. And I would submit that some of those things are what makes this bill necessary, because it does provide some specific language that addresses issues that have been identified over time that have caused litigation, right? And so, again, working from one of the premises of the bill is to reduce the amount of lawsuits that are submitted against the university system. We feel as though this does that. I would submit to you that if I felt as though this legislation would actually open up our university system to more litigation, I would have never signed on to the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question. Thank you. I would say, in follow-up to that, I think the university system of Georgia has done an incredible job considering the amount of interactions. But when I read languages, lines 1 through 6 through 109, that would ensure we don't lose federal funding for violating federal non-discrimination policies. And so what this is you're trying to protect this potential all women's group or all men's group, but have there been any specific situations in Georgia with an organization being denied funding by the campus administration that this is seeking to address, rather than just these theoretical ones? And I'm speaking about in Georgia.
Yeah, there is one to cite.
There's
Yeah.
one?
Well, so this,
Well,
go ahead.
No, go ahead and cite it, and I'll respond.
Yeah, so there was actually a situation just this past fall with University of West Georgia involving a women's sorority that was limited to Christian women. And the university took the position that you cannot limit yourself to Christian women. So some of the very associational rights we're discussing here were at issue there.
How was that resolved?
It was after a multi-week process. I know there was several letters back and forth, and I think ultimately the university backed down. But part of our hope with this is when we enshrine these into state law, what becomes a multi-week dragged-out process is immediately resolved the very first time this issue comes up, because the universities and colleges now have clear guidelines letting them know, nope, you've got to respect the ability of clubs and organizations like this to operate consistent with their beliefs and their membership criteria.
So we have one situation that was resolved in a few weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If you don't mind, Chairman, I want to follow up on that. So tell me again briefly, and I don't want to get too much down in anecdotal case. I know we can do it all day. The University of Georgia was a sorority. Is it a nationally chartered sorority?
That's correct.
And they're chartered nationally with that theme only, or is it just this campus version that chose to be selective in membership by religious belief?
Sure. So my understanding is that is a national policy that they have, that they are sort of set up specifically as that's the defining characteristics of their organization.
Okay, I'll get back for it. I do want to ask the university some questions later, so I want to ask them. I was under the impression that those organizations were handled in a different manner than other registered student organizations, but so that may have been a twofold mistake, but I'll go to that later. Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. I know that we are focused on the lines 98 through 109, and I have a question there too, but I wanted to actually start on line 42 through 44. Can you just define for me undifferentiated fear? What does that mean?
Pardon me, Dr. Clark. I was talking with Chairman Jar. Can you give me the line number again so I can follow along with you?
I apologize. It is line 42 through 44. It is in the definition of materially and substantially disrupts. At the end, it says, however, that mere undifferentiated fear or apprehension of disturbance. And I just want to understand what that means. If there is a legitimate, or I guess, what is undifferentiated? I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what is undifferentiated fear?
Unless you wish to take that on, I'm going to let do you wish to answer that? Yeah, that in your defense, that is the language that I worked out with the House lawyer and the university system. So if, Dr. Clark, if you wouldn't, that is not necessarily the gentleman's language. I would like to let attorneys from the university system answer that if that suit you when they come up.
Yeah, at the appropriate time. All right.
Unless you wish to opine on it or you're okay, thank you.
Wait. Can I ask a
Yes,
follow-up?
you have another one?
Yes. Also on line 50 and 51, when we are describing student-on-student harassment, it says means unwelcome conduct or expressive activity directed at a student that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. So that's a huge list, I feel, of things that have to be, that you have to, I guess, prove for harassment. And I think that or is probably the better word to go there, because something can be severe, but maybe not necessarily objectively offensive. And I think that this just puts a bigger burden on defining harassment than what we even see in like EEOC and other, other types of definitions of harassment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. So that language is actually verbatim from the U.S. Supreme Court in the case of Davis versus Monroe Board of Education, but it was the standard the Supreme Court said is the appropriate harassment standard for student-on-student harassment in the education context.
Last question.
So basically, I think what the gentleman said, that is what the Supreme Court has used, so that's a case law standard.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yes, ma'am.
I still think that puts a undue burden on our universities, but I mean, if the Supreme Court says it's okay, then I'll leave it alone. My last question is, we've talked a lot about avoiding litigation. Is there not a worry that a university could be held liable for discrimination based on what is written in lines 103 through 106 if we did not have the following lines after that by the federal government, and could that not also affect federal funds? And that's why those lines 106 through 109 are actually really important for this.
I'm going to not put him in a position to argue against himself and say that's a matter for each and every member to decide for themselves. I included the language because I thought it was a compromise, but if you wish to speak to it, you're welcome to. But
Sure. I'll just say as a general matter, so about 12 to 14 states have passed robust protections for free association. And in all of those states, there has not been any loss of funding. There's not been any litigation over the issue. In fact, just the contrary, states that have passed forum acts have actually not had any litigation on any of the issues, the speech codes, the speech zones, or free associations after they have passed those laws.
number 17.
Yeah, I'll be
There's a
very
question.
brief. I attended the University of Georgia for 1 year before transferring to Georgia State because I was working full-time at Morris Brown College, okay? And from what I'm hearing, my goddaughter is a full-time student at the University of Georgia now, and she's having a grand time. So I'm encouraged by what's going on. You know, when you think of the past, and what has actually happened. And Dr. Early was here the other day, and she had really good memories. Some were not good, but I am encouraged, and I think that the university system at least is trying to do better. Thank you.
And I appreciate that comment. I would certainly agree. The university system is definitely trying. I've got a daughter at UGA myself. I attended that university, so I'm very familiar, of course, with that university. And then all of my interactions so far as an elected official with the university system has all been positive. So I certainly agree that they are trying and they are doing, certainly getting better. I would just again submit that sometimes we need to put certain things in law in order to help with that progress. But thank you for the comment.
Thank you. There are no more questions. I do want to honor Vice Chairman of the committee, Reeves, had questions for the university system in Georgia. I want to go to them. I know Dr. Clark had a question that I want them to answer. So I'm going to ask you guys to stay with us, and we'll call you back up. You'll have the final word. But if there's someone from the university system that wishes to. Yes, ma'am.
Good
Thank you for
afternoon.
joining us. If you could just, again, identify yourself for those that weren't here before and tell us who you are and who you represent.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Martin and members of the committee. I'm Brooke Bowen. I'm Senior Legal Counsel for the Board of Regents. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
I think if you don't mind, I'm going to last. Did you hear, do you need Dr. Clark to restate her question, or I think it
About
was-
the undifferentiated fear?
Yes, ma'am.
So that comes straight from Supreme Court case law in Tinker. The case was about students who were protesting the Vietnam War wearing black armbands, and it was a lower school in that case, suspended those students for wearing black armbands, saying this is going to be disruptive if you're protesting the Vietnam War in class. And what the Supreme Court said is you can't just have this undifferentiated fear or apprehension that there's going to be disruption that's going to happen. There's got to be either actual or a very much a likelihood that actual disruption of either your operations or the expressive activities of others is going to occur. So that's where we pulled the language from.
So just using an example, and I apologize if the example seems extreme, but if someone decides to wear swastika patches on their shirts, and we're saying, yeah, we definitely don't want that in the classroom because it could be disruptive, would that be considered undifferentiated fear?
I'd say actually, I believe that the Supreme Court would require us to allow those swastikas to be on a shirt. The whole basis of the First Amendment is that we as government actors can't choose which speech to allow and not to allow based on what our personal preference is.
But even if it would cause a disturbance, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Right, and so that's the analysis the Supreme Court in Tinker went through, is it can't just be this fear. It can't be a few public officials sitting in a room saying this is going to cause a mass uprising on our schools and preclude our schools from operating. There actually has to be some substance. So arguably in Tinker, or in the swastika example, maybe if it was an instance where if there were rioting, our public safety could pull in. If it was a case where all of our 30,000 students at the University of Georgia didn't attend class because of this swastika, then maybe. But actually what Tinker does set out to prove and set out to protect, and what we set out to protect at our schools, is even if there's some discomfort, if it is an unprotected speech, that is still allowed by the First Amendment. That's what we're required to do under federal law now, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. That goes a bit to what I was trying to allude to earlier, and the learned attorney put it much better. I mean, for us to have full, unfettered freedom of speech, there's going to be people that are doing things that I not only don't like, that I abhor, each and every one of us, and that is the struggle, that the razor's edge that we are trying to walk. Is that number 25?
Being here. Just curious in terms of USG's just official stance on this bill, your recommended changes. Let's say, for example, that all of your recommendations and changes were made to this bill. Would you then support it?
We appreciate very much Chairman Martin and Representative Bonner working with us on these bills. We think that the language as currently drafted allows us to continue protecting the First Amendment while also allowing us to continue to comply with the federal laws against discrimination and harassment with which we must comply. So the bill as currently drafted is proposed by Chairman Martin. We are good with.
Thank you.
Representative Gardner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is very puzzling to me. I have a great deal of respect for the university system, and I believe it is their intent to robustly protect free association for students. And the information that I'm getting suggests that they have been working very hard to make sure that they comply with First Amendment rights for everybody. And I'm concerned about the meddling, frankly, of politicians like us who are not First Amendment rights attorneys, coming up with language that will ultimately end up in a court anyway. I think we're worried about various words and how the court is going to interpret it, and it makes me really nervous for us to be what I consider to be making demands on the university system that are inappropriate. I mean, inappropriate in our role. I guess some of the court cases that you've described, it's my understanding that you have worked to resolve some of those issues and that those court cases have been resolved. Is that fair to say? What can you tell me about those?
Yes, absolutely. So I started at the system office back in late 2016, and since that time we have had 3 lawsuits on the First Amendment. The first lawsuit happened within a month of me starting at the University System of Georgia. That lawsuit has been dismissed by the Northern District of Georgia, and that dismissal affirmed by the 11th Circuit. We did, in that case, look and enact policies. We worked with the Attorney General's office. We enacted policies across all of our campuses, and we enacted a board policy to clarify the support of free expression rights. There were 2 other lawsuits that were brought in 2018 regarding one of our universities, and as soon as we were made aware of that, there were some things that the school could have done better. We immediately worked to resolve those. We worked with the plaintiff's attorneys in that case. Had they called me, as I've asked to do, that we would have worked with them without them having to bring litigation. That is their prerogative, but they did bring litigation. We worked to resolve their issues immediately. The West Georgia case that was just mentioned that apparently happened in the fall, we were also at the system office. We were not aware of this until very recently, as of a week ago. But my understanding is that that university in that instance actually remedied the situation within a week, and that the employees who were involved in that decision are no longer employed by the university. So I would say, again, I hope we never get it wrong, but we are working hard that if we ever see where it's wrong, to remedy that immediately.
So one of the provisions of this on 227 talks about your developing materials, programs, guidelines, so that students know what to expect. Is that something that you are already doing, or do you require a bill to tell you to do that?
We're currently doing trainings with all of our schools with various officials ranging from academic affairs to public safety to student affairs. I've met with a number of students. Many of our institutions have already initiated orientation sessions about the First Amendment, and that's to help the students understand too. A lot of the pushback that we get actually is when we defend the First Amendment, because we get calls from our students saying, how could you allow this person to say this on our campus? And we are trying to help our students understand that just because we allow the expression doesn't mean that we necessarily support the expression, but we absolutely support the individual's rights to express themselves in that way, because it is only through that full and robust dialogue that we all become better citizens.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just find that, in my opinion, we need to trust the university system to protect our rights, or the courts.
Yes, ma'am. I thank you for your comment. I think to Representative Bonner's credit, in places where we've had the discussion and we've been able to take language from federal court decisions, we've been able to do that. We're not trying to plow new ground here, if I can borrow a phrase. I think we're trying to just put in black letter state statute what we should be doing, what we all wish to be doing. But your point's well taken. I'm going to go to number 1 down there. Is that Representative Benton?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm just curious to know what this language, this bill as it's written, will this impact the university system's federal funding in any form or fashion?
As currently written, so long as we're consistently applying our non-discrimination policies, which we're currently allowed to do under federal law, then we are okay under our federal funding and our obligations for non-discrimination and harassment laws, as well as our obligations under the First Amendment, so long as we're consistently applying. We're not pulling out groups and treating them differently because we don't agree with their message. But the short answer is, as the bill is currently drafted, yes, we feel like we would be able to comply. Thank you.
Number 14. Chairman
Chair. Thank you for your work. I understand. I've kind of dug into this issue over the past couple of weeks and seen like really how hard the university system works to get this right. I earlier asked a question to the presenters about any instances where an organization was withheld funds, because obviously that's a big section here. It concerns us for loss of federal funding. They mentioned one instance. Do you have any more information on that?
Yeah, as I had mentioned to the representative, thank you for your question. My understanding, again, having just recently learned about this, was that there was a student organization who possibly qualified for the Title IX exemption for the fraternities and sororities. Their withdrawal of their organization was only impacted for a week, and within a week, the university had corrected it. The student organization is at the university now, is fully functioning. So within a week, I wish I could say we didn't do it at all, but with a lot of employees, it may mess up, but it was remedied immediately.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to try and narrow what I think is the issue that we're really dealing with here, and that's the two, the old version of I and the version of I that's proposed right now. And the way that I understand this is that obviously every university or USG or individual universities have the ability to create their own rules and policies that apply to student organizations. And I think that that's common sense that they're able to do that. And the question is what are those rules and policies subject to? And the way that I understand the prior version of the legislation is that those rules and regulations are subject to not just the First Amendment, but also the language about discriminating against an organization, denying an organization benefit or privilege, or denying a proposed student organization recognition. That those concepts would be concepts that would limit the policies and rules that come underneath. And in the current draft of the bill, that the rules and policies would be subject only to the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, and not the language about discriminating against student organization, denying a student organization benefit or privilege, or denying a proposed student organization recognition based on the further language, actual, anticipated, expressive activity, etc. Is that accurate, the way that you see it, as far as what I think the two big differences are?
I think that's fair. Again, to be the language I saw previously did not have a provided clause at all. It ended with it was a slightly different A, B, and C, but it ended with that affirm and adhere to the organization's sincerely held beliefs. And as we testified previously, my concern there is if an organization's standard of conduct is to exclude an individual because of their membership in a protected class, that we, as public colleges and universities, would not have any recourse to prohibit that, and so could be at risk for violating federal non-discrimination and anti-harassment laws. What we have worked with is having the provided and including that our policies can't violate the First Amendment. So what the First Amendment says and what the case law says is you can have these non-discrimination policies because absolutely that's a compelling state interest that you shouldn't have discrimination, especially when there's federal laws on the books prohibiting that discrimination. So as long as you're applying those policies consistently, as long as you're not singling out saying we like chess better than checkers. So hey, chess club, you don't have to comply with these policies, but the Checkers Club does. That's what's not okay under the First Amendment, that viewpoint discrimination. So we think that addition at 108 and 109, which we already do, but we believe that adequately protects any fears that the other side may have that there is going to be a violation of a First Amendment right.
And I think, and I'm trying to understand both sides here, and I think that what Representative Bonner and the folks that are with him are saying is that structuring it this way defeats the purpose of how rules and policies, of what all rules and policies are subject to or dictated by. And so my question is, and I'm thinking out loud right now, which is dangerous, but my question is, in section, or after C, I'm sorry, so in the 106 to 109 part, which I guess in 108 is where, we talk about, provided further such rules and policies do not violate the First Amendment. If in addition to that, we then also added such rules and policies do not violate the First Amendment, do not discriminate against student organization, deny a student organization benefit or privilege, or deny a proposed organization recognition. And then further, is there a way to add more language which says roughly something to the effect of, in all matters, what you were saying earlier about violating federal discrimination laws and how that component works into this whole picture? Is there a way to then couch, after we expand the things that can limit or at least create the subject to the rules and policies, but then state with finality about the federal discrimination laws? Is there a way to craft all that together that and I think that I've actually confused myself here talking. I'm in a lot of circles right now.
The learned witness is a lawyer. Our distinguished vice chairman is a lawyer.
A confused lawyer.
I will remind the both of them this is not House Judiciary. There is
everything is House Judiciary, Chairman. Everything.
There is a way, and there is a way. I'm sure there is a way, and we're going to have Representative Bonner. I've got two more questions. We have for some folks here that have been waiting for a bit. I don't have a particular pride in authorship because Representative Bonner had a lot to do with this language. The current witness had a lot to do with this language. I tried to inject a little lawyerism in it, which I do not know how. I would suggest, something along the lines, if we were to put a period in line 101 and stop expressive activity, period, and then additionally, no public institution of higher education may discriminate against a student organization in front of line 102, so that you set apart the protections you want to have. That's something we could do. I am resistant to do that in this committee today. We are going to have another bite. We are going to hear a Senate bill on this should this move forward today. So this is not something that I would. This is not the perfect measure. This is not the measure that if this passes, that will go to the governor. I promise you, we will get to see this again. So I'm remiss to ask you to vote for something you do not believe in, but I know there will be further perfection along this line. So to answer the Vice Chairman's question, I'm sure there's a way we can work on this. With that said, I'd like to move on for a few more questions and see if we have the will of the committee. I do think we are making progress. We are different from the Senate, which assures us we are going to have continued discussion. I think it's a worthy, and I'm doing what I asked you guys not to do. I'm getting into my opinion on the bill before we get debate of it. This should be question and answer. But I think we we are working toward a good solution, and I want to continue to do that. Did you have anything further besides?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much. No, number 23, is that Representative Gardner?
Thank you very much, Mr.
We're
Chairman.
charging you by the minute today, Representative.
Pardon me?
I said we're charging you and I by the minute today.
Well, then let's see how much I can wring out.
I'm a chief man. Yes, ma'am.
With all due respect, this appeared on our desk when we walked in this morning. It is a highly important and technical bill. I wonder, I guess I would like to make a motion to put it on the table until we have adequate time to look at what the language is really going to say. I hear the vice chairman struggling and trying to figure out appropriate language. I respect his ability to do that, but I'm just not comfortable with passing something that is important to our higher education system, which we are all very proud of. So my motion is to table until a time certain.
The chair did not recognize you for that purpose at this time. We have other questions. Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you can answer this, or maybe Mr. Chair, you can answer. So earlier when I asked about student-on-student harassment and about the in severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, and you said it came from case law.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Oh, well, someone said it came from
yes,
case
ma'am.
law. All right. So I presume that is Davis versus Monroe County BOE. And so I looked that up, and that language is for sexual harassment. This bill is not talking about sexual harassment. So it is still my concern that this "and" puts an undue burden on preventing harassment in these cases.
I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you say the case. Is that the case, the one point that you were working with?
That's the case that was presented to us in the bill. And so the Davis case, you're correct. It is about a lower school in Georgia and about student-on-student sexual harassment. There are interpretations that what applies for Title IX in terms of student-on-student harassment also applies in the Title VI realm for student-on-student harassment. We had previously expressed concerns that the definition did not need to be included at all, but what what has been added to the statute that we are good with is that at lines 88 through 89, that nothing in this part prohibits us from complying with federal and state law prohibiting discrimination and harassment.
So harassment as we use for employment?
Right, and so I previously testified about the and the or, and we believe that while we would have preferred no definitions at all because federal courts may change their definitions, we believe that the language in G at 88 and 89 would allow us to meet our obligations under federal and state law regarding all types of discrimination and harassment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're referring to starting on lines 88 and 89. We added that as I think a compromise. When you all were working, they wanted to keep a definition. You preferred not to have one. So we have, that's a belt and suspenders portion of the bill. And Dr. Clark, I should have pointed that out earlier. That is one definition. Then there are always the state and federal laws to do that. Number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to ask a question that was asked of you a few minutes ago by Representative Earhart. Are you happy with this bill as it is now written?
We believe that the bill as written would allow us to meet all of our obligations under federal and state law, which is what we're concerned about at the end of the day. I will say we still think there are adequate protections in the First Amendment itself, in Senate Bill 339, which was passed 2 years ago, in our board policies, in our practices, in our trainings. We believe there are adequate protections there, but if this committee is inclined to move a bill forward to have this codified in state law, then we believe the current version of the bill does meet our needs in allowing us to comply with all of our obligations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Number 19.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Washburn, for a very good opening there. Listen to what USG says. Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Let me just ask, Representative Bonner, did you wish to add anything before we go forward? I'd offer you the opportunity to say anything further. Are you ready to hear? Are you ready for this committee to pass judgment on your measure? Do you wish to add anything further?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to caution you more, maybe less. Or less, maybe more, I should say. Yes,
Understood. I appreciate that. First of all, I will just say that I greatly appreciate the work that's been done to get us to this point. Appreciate input of the chairman. Appreciate input of USG and the questions that I've received from members of the committee. I will say that the bill as the version of the bill that we are considering today is certainly not a perfect bill in my mind, and I certainly don't want to make perfect enemy of the good in this case. I think that we have some work to do. I would certainly hope that we could pass this out today that would allow us to continue to work on the bill, and also we'll most likely see this again with the Senate version. So, Mr. Chairman, I would certainly hope that we would pass it out, even though that we do have some reservations in terms of how that language is worded that gives, essentially in our minds, it gives the university the ability to trump certain aspects of our student organization policies in terms of the First Amendment. So we've heard testimony that that things certainly are getting better with the university system, but I think when it comes to these rights that we can't be overly protective. We need to do everything we can to protect those. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's all the comments that I have.
Thank you very much. Vice Chairman of the committee.
And Representative Bonner, I know that I've been in your position before. I've showed up to a committee and I've had a substitute presented, and every situation is unique and different, but sometimes just keeping a bill alive so we can keep the discussion going and continue to work over the next day. If there is a way to reach a bridge in this, then I'm commit to help you to continue to do that over the next day as we look at some of the language we were talking about earlier, and if there is a way to work that out. So I encourage you to keep going with this, assuming that this committee passes this bill today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Representative Jaspers. I do want to sound for the committee. SB 318 was referred to this committee 3/10/2020. That was referred to us yesterday. We will have a hearing on that bill next Monday or Tuesday on our off days. So I do think it's important for us that this bill is a bit different than 318. We've worked on some compromises. Representative Bonner, while he may not believe in everything we've done, he has been. We have compromised further and have a more agreeable language even before these last two than they had in the Senate. Is that not true, Representative?
Absolutely.
This gives the House an opportunity for each and every member to decide for themselves how they're going to vote. But if we vote in favor, it gives the House committee an opportunity to go on record as a starting position as we look on the Senate bill. This time, I recognize Chairman Jaspers for a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make the motion that we do pass the committee sub 490228S.
Is there a second to the motion? I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Chairman Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for your efforts. I know you've worked, Chairman Martin, tirelessly with Representative Bonner, with the University System of Georgia. And thank you, Representative Bonner. I know your heart is always in the right place. I've worked with you on a lot of issues. But I just got to say, lines 98 through 109 risk all federal funding for the University System of Georgia. And there's only been one instance in Georgia where this has been a problem, and it was only there for a week. Thank y'all.
Not sure I agree with the gentleman with the current, from what I've heard with all the language in that we risk the federal funds, but you Well, I understand. I have, do you mind getting him to do the amendment? To the committee, if I can get someone, I'd like to call on the attorney. We have a technical amendment to the bill we need to make. I call your attention to line 8. As you know, this bill applies to the university system and the technical college system of Georgia. Inadvertently, on the last page of the bill, it says assessments, criticism, recommendations go to the Board of Regents. And I think at that point, it's page 8, the last page, right above section 5. It basically refers to the Board of Regents, and I believe the attorney has a technical amendment. If I could ask him to share that amendment, and then I'll go to the committee if there's a move on that amendment. Mr. Attorney, would you, number 13, I'm going to turn you on, if you could read the potential amendment for us to correct the technical.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed amendment would be to strike, starting on line 242, the words Board of Regents, and insert in lieu thereof the following: State Board of Technical College System of Georgia.
Does everyone understand what we're doing there? Yeah, but basically, yes. Does anyone wish to move on that amendment? I have a motion, and do I have a second? We're voting on the amendment now. This is an amendment to make a technical correction. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Any opposed, no. The motion is approved. The item before us is amended. We are now voting to create a committee substitute from the amendment having amended LC 49022S. We are now on to the main question. Is there a debate on the main question? Any discussion? Discussion on the main question. Main question is to pass House Bill 995 LC 490228S with the amendment creating a committee substitute. No further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no? No. Chair rules the ayes have it. We wish a division of the House. All those in favor of the motion signify by raising their hand. Count them up for us. Okay, all those opposed?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against. I have 11 for, 6 against.
We have 11 in affirmative, 6 against. The motion passes to the Rules Committee with a due pass recommendation by committee substitute as per the amendment.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the committee. We have, and I want to get to Representative Carpenter's measure. Does the committee, I hate to wait, I'm in a quandary. I hate to have these folks wait any longer, but I wonder if the committee is ready to take action on Chairman Representative Choka's bill. But we're going to be brief. These folks have been waiting, so if we don't get there wherever Representative Chokas is, so without objection, then, or I will ask. Without objection, may I remove 1084 from the table? Is there objection? Hearing no objection, we'll remove 1084 from the table for action with unanimous consent. Chairman Chokas, I'm going to go to questions and hope everyone. Are there any further questions? We had no speakers on the bill from the public. Are there questions? I have something from number 24 here, and that is.
No question, Mr. Chairman. Ready for a motion.
All right. Let me just make sure. No questions. Again, I have a motion by Representative Washburn. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? This is a motion on LC 500088S, House Bill 1084. Discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. That item passes. Representative Chokas, thank you for your time. Thank you for letting the committee ingest that a bit further. That item also passes. Thank you. Again, we have folks here. I'm going to get right into that. I hope you all can stay with us today. Representative Carpenter. House Bill 997. Thank you for your patience.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed listening to the debate. So I have before you House Bill 997. I brought this bill on behalf of the 21,000 Dreamers in the state of Georgia and 6,000 Dreamers that live in Whitfield County, which is my district. Basically what this bill would do in a nutshell is it would allow these folks that have received their DACA recipient in the state of Georgia that have graduated from a Georgia high school to attend certain colleges in this state and pay the in-state tuition rate. To me, it's a workforce development issue. We've got these folks that are working and living in our communities. They're driving cars in our communities. They're paying taxes in our communities, sales tax and income taxes. We've invested $100,000 in these folks' education so far. Why not invest a little bit more so that they can attain higher paying jobs and pay more in taxes? I'd appreciate any questions. I know you've been in here a long time. I don't want to go through too much with you, but I'm available to take a bunch of questions.
A bunch of questions, he said. Well, let me ask the members again. I'm taking quick questions on the bill. We'll come back for questions later. There are some people that have signed up to testify. I'd like to get to them. So if we go maybe past 5 or 10 minutes on the questions, I'm going to ask that we suspend those, take our testimony, and then we'll come back to the gentleman from questions. That's it. Dr. Clark.
I thought we were.
Well, if you don't mind waiting until the folks testify, I think that would be fine.
I actually do not mind.
Okay, we'll do that then. Representative Carpenter, since folks have been here and they have been good with us and may have to go, I'm going to go to let them speak and then come back to you.
Absolutely. That's why I did it in such a brief format. I know everybody's been here all day.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to let you call or I will. The first person we have signed up to speak, Jennifer Lee. Ms. Lee. Still with us? Yes, ma'am. You're going to say post it up there at the table?
I think so. It's kind of cool. I mean, I feel like I'm...
The gentleman will not give away the table, Miss Lee. You're going to have to do it from the podium.
I'm sorry, Miss Lee. I feel like I'm riding a bus.
Don't worry, Miss Lee. I just turned his microphone off. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. Good afternoon, Chairman Martin, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Lee, and I'm a senior policy analyst at the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, where I focus on higher education. I focus on common sense solutions that will help students get to and through their chosen higher education path, whether that's a technical certificate or a bachelor's degree. I just wanted to start by reiterating why all of us in this room care about higher education in Georgia. Higher levels of education are associated with positive individual benefits like higher incomes, but also better health outcomes, longer life expectancies. Education is also associated with community benefits, including greater participation in community service, civic and religious organizations in our state. Georgia currently ranks 31st in the country for adults with an associate degree or higher, and we have improved quite a lot in our college completion rates, but we are not where we need to be as a state. 19 other states have in-state tuition policies for resident students across with different immigration statuses, and that includes economic competitors like Florida and Texas. Now, I know from my research and speaking with students that cost is a big factor for students. Out-of-state tuition in the university system is 3 times higher than in-state tuition, and for example, that would mean a student would pay $10,000 per semester at University of North Georgia, or $5,000 per semester at an institution like Dalton State College. Technical colleges also have out-of-state tuition rates of $200 per credit hour and international student tuition rates of $400 per credit hour. I also want to note that current policies allow students from 5 neighboring states to pay in-state tuition rates at most colleges in the university system, while policy does not allow some students who have lived and graduated high school in Georgia to do so. Having consistent in-state tuition policies for all Georgia residents would provide an opportunity to remove this financial barrier to education and help create a more educated state. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any. that
Thank
are
you very much. I
within
see
my
no
expertise.
questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to be at a loss. Miss Joe? Mr. Joe? Oh, I'm sorry. And the last, Alicia? We're going to have to work on your penmanship, Alicia.
That's okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, members of the committee and chairman. My name is Aisha Yaqub
Aisha,
Mahmood.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I am the director of the Asian American Advocacy Fund. We are a social welfare organization dedicated to building a politically conscious, engaged, and progressive Asian American base here in Georgia. Georgia is home to nearly 500,000 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Nationwide, we know that nearly 1 in 7 Asian Americans is undocumented, and many are DACA eligible or have DACA status. Like any community member, our undocumented young people are embedded in our communities. Barriers to education, like having to pay out-of-state tuition rates, have forced many to seek education outside of Georgia. I am here in support of tuition equity, and I'm encouraged to see not just 1, but 3 in-state tuition bills introduced this session. However, we believe that this latest iteration of the bill is restrictive and does not cover the vast majority of undocumented students in Georgia. In particular, we object to lines 24 and 25, which keeps these students from attending research universities as designated by the Board of Regents. And for those of you who do not recognize those, that includes Augusta University, the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Georgia State University. Now, currently, Board of Regents policy 4.1.6 already bars undocumented students from attending Augusta University, the University of Georgia, and Georgia Tech, but our students have been attending Georgia State University for many years. We have been pushing back against the Board of Regents for this policy, but we would not like to see it expanded and codified in this state law. In addition, we have issues with lines 37 and 38, which restricts in-state tuition to those who are lawfully present in the state. Lawful presence has not been defined in state law, but federal law grants lawful presence to some undocumented individuals who are eligible for DACA or TPS, temporary protected status. Including this language would make it so that undocumented individuals who are not on DACA or TPS would still be subjected to out-of-state tuition rates. Lastly, we recommend in lines 31 and 32, removing the maximum age of enrollment so that students of any age may be eligible to enroll. I commend the efforts of the bill, and I do want to give a special thanks to the bill authors for getting this conversation started. This is an important conversation that we have yet to have in this building. I encourage a discussion on how to broaden the eligibility categories so that more students are eligible for in-state tuition. And I just want to underscore again how thankful I am for this discussion to be happening in this committee, and I thank you for your time.
Aisha, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. No questions? Sure.
While it's still hot off the press. So I think I understand their concerns. I think lines 24 and 25 actually applies to the in-state portion of that. So it would not tell people that they could not attend Georgia State. It would just not allow them to receive in-state tuition at Georgia State, University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Augusta. And then the piece about 37 and 38, I think it's been my understanding of this body that there's not a huge temperament to pass out a bill that would allow undocumented people to pay in-state rates. And the contention of this bill is to say that these folks are lawfully present under the DACA memo. They're lawfully present in the United States. They're lawfully present in Georgia. They have a Georgia driver's license. They have a Social Security card. And they have the right to work in the state. And we're saying that these people are able to get in-state tuition. And so I think that's the reason for those lines in this bill.
Are there questions for the speaker? Or okay, no, I'm seeing numbers pop up here. No, by accident. No one. Ms. Bentley, Representative Bentley. No, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Clear. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to be clear with the author. Lines 24 and 25. Identified by the Board of Regents as a research university. When I hear the word research, I think about Fort Valley State. Does that, okay.
No, so I'll talk out loud. So, a research organization is defined, and it's defined as those schools that I said, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Georgia State and Augusta. And so basically that definition is based off of the FTE funding rate out of the state budget. So those universities fund at a much, much higher rate with state funds than the other colleges in the state. So if this bill passed, they could attend Fort Valley State at an in-state rate.
Which could, in terms, help Fort Valley State's enrollment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Are there further questions regards to this speaker? Okay, again, we have more speakers. Can
Sorry,
we wait?
I jumped out, but
No, I was going to say, yeah.
it was
we're-
hot off the press.
And
and so
again,
I
I'll
didn't
come,
wanna-
I'll come right back to you, but I was trying to get to the speakers.
I'm
again.
a little ADD like yourself, Chairman, and I get a little sidetracked sometimes.
So we're gonna suspend those. We'll come back to them. I'm turning his microphone off again. And Miss Isabella Otero, I think you've been before us before. Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Yes, my name is Isabel Otero. I am the Policy Associate for the SPLC Action Fund. We are also really encouraged and thankful that there are 3 in-state tuition bills before the Georgia House, and we thank Representative Carpenter for his bill and for bringing up this issue and lifting up this conversation. Our sister organization, the Southern Poverty Law Center, has been working on the issue across the Deep South, and we believe that this is one of the best and most common sense ways to support young immigrants who call Georgia home. Far too many talented and deserving students have had their dreams of college education shattered because they are unable under current state law to pay in-state tuition to attend our colleges and universities. And so without an equitable in-state tuition policy, Georgia will lose the benefit of these students to the other neighboring states. And we will not have the benefit of their contributions to our state's economic and cultural fabric. The SPLC Action Fund, like our colleagues at the Asian American Advocacy Fund, do believe in in-state tuition equity for all Georgia residents. And this is currently more restrictive than the original bill. And so we do encourage the author of this bill and the committee to broaden the language. As it is written right now, some of the students who do currently qualify for the federal program called the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, would be too old to obtain in-state tuition equity, or would be too old when they arrive in the state of Georgia to be eligible for this in-state tuition waiver. And so unless, for example, a young person arrives in Georgia, they must arrive in Georgia by 2013 and remain in the state in order to be eligible for what this bill would allow. And it's important to remember that as the author has said, lawful presence and lawful status are different. So a DACA recipient has lawful presence and they are able to work in our state, but they do not currently have lawful status. And so it's really important for everyone to remember that immigration status and immigration presence is not a permanent thing, right? So these things could change. And so creating policies that include way too many restrictions for someone based on their current information and current status prevents some of the students who do want to stay in Georgia and contribute to our state from being eligible later when they do adjust their status. And lots of people are always trying to adjust their status, and some are eligible now and some will be eligible later. And so we do offer any support, including consulting with our attorneys who have had litigation in other states based on in-state tuition policies, and would love to be able to support these efforts at the Georgia State House. We also encourage you all to think about putting privacy protections for the information that is shared from immigrant students with universities, and also not to limit the kind of colleges that they are allowed to attend. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, but thank you all for your time, and thank you for bringing this up in committee.
Thank you. See no questions.
Thank you.
Christian Olvera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, if I may.
We're going to have to get you just to write larger because yours is too tiny. Yes, sir.
If I may, Casey, my representative, so I'm going to have to share.
Well, that's a matter for you to decide there, sir. Yes, sir.
Here's your driver's license
I need
and your
that.
social security card back.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Christian Olvera. I am from Dalton, Georgia. I'm here today to represent the importance of tuition equity for Dreamers. It's a common sense policy that would help the dream of higher education within the reach of thousands of hardworking Georgians. Tuition equity would grow our state's economy and unquestionably make Georgia and the entire United States stronger. Currently in Georgia, high school students that grew up here, that live here, work and play in the local community, and contribute to our economy are forced to pay out-of-state tuition rates that attend the same colleges and universities that their classmates attend. Failure to provide tuition equality for Dreamers is preventing hard-working young people from achieving their full potential and holding Georgia's economy back from additional job creation and growth. At the time when college enrollment rates are falling, thousands of Dreamers are being priced out of college, hurting the state's economic competitiveness. Meanwhile, passing tuition equity legislation in Georgia would result in an additional 37,000 undocumented students enrolling in higher education. Now, in the committee's paperwork today, we've put in this kind of quick flyer. I'm on the back here. Just show some quick pointers on what the positives are for in-state tuition and how it could make Georgia stronger. Now, we can count on 21,000 DACA recipients in Georgia. That's 5,000 plus college graduate added to the workforce if Georgia Dreamers are granted in-state tuition. Now, my story, just a really brief story. It's I know I'll try to be efficient with your time. I got to this beautiful state in 1999. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I'm as Georgia as they get. I grew up drinking sweet tea. I graduated high school in 2010, and slowly realized that I was different. I had the grades to attend all these great universities, but I had the doors shut in my face. I was eligible for scholarships and grants, and unfortunately, I could not pursue higher education. So I just want to thank State Representative Casey Carpenter and other sponsors of tuition equity legislation for giving the opportunity for us to have this dialogue. We remain committed to seeing this policy advance, and we look forward to working with members of the committee in these coming months to craft policy that will benefit Georgians. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Gentlemen, have any questions? Christian, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You have everything going for you except those with whom you seem to associate there. I'm joking. I'm joking. We thank Representative Carpenter. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Will you take a question from Representative Bentley? Yes.
Of course.
Thank you for your presentation, but I don't remember hearing you say, which school did you attend?
Dalton High School.
Dalton High School. Okay.
Dalton High School, yeah.
Dalton High School.
Yeah.
College?
Dalton High School and Dalton State, yes. I'm currently enrolled at Dalton State. It's taken me so long. I still have my eyes on the prize, and I'm going to finish.
Okay. Have you ever considered any schools below Atlanta, like
I think she's
Fort
recruiting
Valley
you to Fort Valley State.
I mean, I'm just curious to know what are Dreamers looking for in a school, because Fort Valley State University certainly is an agricultural research school. So
definitely,
yeah.
I mean, my dream school was always Georgia Tech. I'm just a numbers guy. I love. Hey, I wouldn't mind going to UGA either. It's just it comes down to a money thing, and at the time, you're hit as a dreamer. You're hit with this paradox. You're not allowed for scholarships and funding, and then they raise the price 3 times. I'm not here for a handout. I don't want anybody else's money. I just want it to be equal what they charge me. It feels as if I'm running a race, and they've tied my shoes together, but they've also greased the baton. You know what I'm saying? So it's a double whammy of an issue, I would say. But I've definitely considered other schools. At the moment, the only one affordable to me paying out-of-state tuition would be my community college at Dalton State.
Okay, well, thank you, and best wishes.
Thank you.
Let me give a bit commercial for Dalton State. We had one of our higher ed meetings up there. So they do a heck of a job at Dalton State.
Definitely.
I believe one of the things they have at the university system is I believe they graduate people. Their average debt at Dalton State University or Dalton State College is the lowest in the university system. I'm going to take just a second here.
Yeah.
I'll take a second in a minute. Further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Israel, is it AC or RC? I can't see if that's many C's. Yes, sir. You choose the podium rather than Representative Carpenter. You know, that's fine.
No, by all means, it actually helps me if you're over there. If you get here too close, I get teary-eyed. Sorry.
Well, thank you very much, everybody here, for your time. My name is Israel Arce Perez.
Get on up in there, Israel.
Thank you. And I'm originally from Morelos, Mexico. I was brought to the United States by my family when I was 6 years old, but for the next 5 years, we moved around a lot, so I didn't really get to have a home until I came to Georgia when I was 11. So that was in 2003. And it definitely took a little bit of time to get used to Georgia, you know, the hills and everything else. I mean, the southern accents definitely kind of got me at first. But really quickly, I knew that I was in the right place in terms of, you know, I could feel the nurturing of the environments that this state basically had. And, you know, for the next couple of years, I attended middle school and high school here. But as you guys know, the undocumented status definitely throws a lot of hurdles into our planning and everything that we want to do. Thankfully, DACA did eventually come through, and because of that, I was able to continue to excel no matter what. I attended Kennesaw State University from 2010 to 2015, and in that period of time, I was just taking the minimal amount of classes trying to complete my nursing degree. And in that period of time, I was able to start getting work into the industry. I found a clinic that actually ended up training me on the field. And for the past 8 years, I have worked with some of the best neurologists and brain trauma specialists here in the state of Georgia. On top of that, I actually am a little bit ADD, as you mentioned as well, and I helped to found a mariachi band in 2015 at Kennesaw State University at the request, I guess, of the staff. They just wanted to bring a cultural type of program, and some of the students there and myself, we, you know, being Hispanic, we figured that we would be able to make it ourselves. And since then, I've actually had the chance of gigging around Georgia pretty frequently. It was something that I guess wasn't ever really brought here. We're your first homegrown mariachi, if you will. And so we've been able to go up and down Georgia to, you know, some of the most rural areas and just being able to connect with the people like that. And because of my, I guess, work in music, I was actually had the opportunity to partake in a recording that ended up winning a Grammy, 3 Grammy awards in 2019 with the help of some of our producers, Kavir Segal, that have been helping here with, I guess, everything that has to do with immigration, you know, for the past many, many years. I mean, the first time that I remember hearing about Dreamers and the opportunity to one day maybe attain an equal status was 2003, 2004. I remember being a really young kid, just hoping that one day things would get fixed. But the bottom line is that I feel like I've been able to achieve a lot just with the DACA status, just with the driver's license, Social Security, that enabled me to get a job, that enabled me to become a professional, and again, that allowed me to show my work and diligence that, you know, I mean, I can have a lot of people attest to that. And I cannot even imagine what would have happened if I had any of a chance to go at it equally. I mean, if I had just half a chance to start from the beginning, right? I mean, hopefully I wouldn't be here. I mean, I'd be doing better work instead of, you know, still struggling to finish, because 5 years of going to Kennesaw State, and I mean, I was only able to complete my core education, even though I currently assist in surgeries, you know, on a daily basis. So that's really the story for me. I would really appreciate if you guys could support tuition equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have questions? I don't see any questions. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the speakers we have. I'm going to go to questions of the author. I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you what posture I see us in today. I didn't say this beforehand because I wanted people to make sure, many times when you talk about we're not going to be able to move on a bill, people get up and leave the room because they think that being able to take action on a bill today, like, you know, it's the only reason to be here. And I want to thank you all for staying. We are not going to take action on this bill today, and I'm going to get to the reason why. I am informed that there's some litigation moving through the court that's set to be decided in June that's going to have a large impact on a lawful status versus I'm not a lawyer. What did you say?
I think you're looking for lawfully present.
Lawful presence versus a status, and that means a lot. This is something that Representative Carpenter has brought to us. A lot of times this hasn't, and there were people that would argue, should you hear it or not? I find, especially the last two gentlemen that are directly involved in this, to be in an untenable situation. You've been bounced back and forth by both political parties and a number of people to raise money, to get votes, in a way that's just not fair. Now, I'm going to stand here today and wax a little philosophical, and I'm going to let all my members do the same if they want. I don't have any prepared remarks, so this is just what Chuck thinks. You can take that down the hall and get a Coca-Cola. We spend a lot of money in K through 12 education. Some people say we shouldn't, some we shouldn't. Some people would say perhaps, even though, like you said, Iced Tea, and you've been here, it's all you know, maybe we should have you or not have let you stay when you got, but you're here now. You're in my world, you're just as much a Georgia guy as I am. We'll go to the football game in the fall if you want to hang around. And I mean that. That said, the federal folks in Washington need to get their self together and figure something out. I've said for a long time that there's a difference between, I'm not a lawyer, I'm certainly not an immigration expert, but if you don't have a legal, whatever it is, you need to get a status, and if there's a citizenship and path for citizenship, and people get all bent out of shape about all this, and this is usually if I'm doing an interview, the point I say where, I'm going to say something to get in trouble with either side of the issue, so I guess I'll just get equally in trouble. But the truth of the matter is, you're here and you want to be a productive portion. Those people in Washington need to figure it out and get a legal status for you if you're going to stay. And if they're not going to allow you to stay, they need to tell you that so you can move on with your life. I'm not advocating whatnot, but they should do that. And so here's what we're going to do in this committee, if the members will if I can garner support to do that, is we're going to talk about this some more, and we're going to try to put something together, and we're going to ask Washington to do something. Now, that's a little bit like holding your head out the window and screaming going down the highway. And then we're going to work towards something in this next legislative session, as they do and as we have things, because I'll make a lot of people mad. I may make a lot of people mad in my party and make some people mad in the other party, and I don't care. If you're going to be here and be educated in K through 12, we need to figure out a way that you can be part of our system, because it's your system too. So I'm gonna be done now, because I'm probably sure you all have other things to say, but I just don't think I'm going to put this committee in a place to make federal immigration policy and Georgia higher education. But I certainly believe it needs to be made, and I think we need to find the Georgia solution in parallel to what they're doing at the federal law. And if that upsets some people, they got my phone number already. They can give me a buzz. I'm going to allow, since I kind of referred to him, I'm going to allow him another comment. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, and I say this in all due respect, but I firmly.
Casey, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to quick fact. I mean, you guys have these facts about the Dreamers, and I'm here to represent the Dreamers. These folks are already vetted. These folks go to through a stringent background check every 2 years, paying fees. They're at the top of their game when it comes to immigrants. They pay the taxes year after year. They've invested so much into the state of Georgia. We're only asking for the same attention back from our own state. And thank you for taking the consideration.
No, I thank you, and I think what we need the feds to do for us is align the lawful presence and lawful status. You have a lawful presence, right, but it's been ruled that the lawful status doesn't, and we're going to work. In other words, I feel the situation you're in. I just, at this stage, I'm not going to put the Georgia House Higher Education Committee in a place where we're making making policy, we're going to let the federal court do that, and then we're going to act on that at the time.
I definitely understand.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman.
much.
Thank you.
All right, we have some people that want to talk, and I've talked all afternoon. So, Dr. Clark, I think you were.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this. And I actually think this is a very important issue, and I wish that we could vote on it today because I really, truly would like to see tuition equity. However, I did have some concerns with this this version of the bill, and so I would like to present a scenario in which a person such as Israel that came and spoke to us was 11 on January 1st, 2013, which this bill starts, or which the term would start, and attended an established domicile in middle school and high school in Georgia. They would have turned 15 in 2017. Well, the problem is in 2017, the DACA program was rescinded by Trump. So they might have been eligible for DACA, but this 15-year-old who was brought here whenever they were brought here, not by any action of their own, is now would not be eligible to apply for DACA. And therefore, even though they've been in the community paying the taxes, our school system has invested in them, they are still not eligible for in-state tuition in this current version of the bill. And so I just feel like if this is a workforce development issue, then why would we limit it? And instead, could we not just add language that one of the other tuition equity bills had that asked that these students sign an affidavit saying that they have or will file an application to legalize their immigration status in order to be a part of it?
Yes, sir. No.
All right, so thank you. So I think I understand your question. It's kind of what Texas has done. I think that they had to be present in the in the United States as of 2007 to apply for the DACA status. So if they were, how old did you say? I'm trying to follow your scenario. So in 2013, they were how old? They would have been able to apply for that for DACA because they'd been in the United States since 2007. So in 2013, you apply as if you had status if you were in the United States as of 2007. And so what this basically says, what the provision 28 through 30 basically says is, we're going to allow people that applied for DACA that were in Georgia at the time of their application for DACA to receive in-state tuition. And I think that's an important piece as we thread the needle of parties. And we say, look, this bill is not saying, hey, if you got DACA, come to Georgia. We're saying this is a contention that if you received your DACA in Georgia, that you can attend via in-state tuition. And so that's the point of that piece. And further, a little bit about, I think me and the chairman have spoke on this, but I firmly contend that the Supreme Court decision that we're talking about is handled in lines 37 and 38 that would basically say if for some reason the Supreme Court or President Trump reverses the lawfully present status of these folks, that they would not be able to receive in-state tuition. So I think it eliminates us out of that policy and just basically lines ourselves with what the feds are calling these fine folks at this point.
I agree, and I'm going to get into the lawyering of it, but the lawful presence and lawful status are different things. And if you have a law right now, DACA folks, as I understand it, have a lawful presence. That it has been ruled in the federal court ruling that is not a lawful status. And what I'm very concerned with is, basically us deciding to have give a benefit to a person without a lawful status, without an additional information from the federal court or from the federal system, because it is the chair's opinion that is not the job of the House Higher Education Policy to make federal immigration status, regardless of what I personally think and feel of these folks that have appealed. I absolutely cannot imagine the situation they're in and would work toward resolution thereof, but it's not our place to make that. Number 14, Chairman Dyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question. First, thank you for bringing this bill. Thank you for working on workforce development in Georgia. Can DACA recipients receive any other state or federal aid to attend a college or university? Okay. Thank you.
Talked about how financially sound it is to attend Dalton State for our folks, and the in-state rate at Dalton State is somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range a year. The out-of-state rate is $12,000, so we're talking about a difference of almost $7,000 to $8,000 per year. So you're talking about $30,000 to $40,000 more at the end of it. So that's why these folks, take 2 or 3 classes at a time, because they got to work so hard to pay that tuition rate that it takes them much, much longer to get through. Or like the people you heard today, they haven't finished it all because eventually they get to a point where they just cannot afford it.
State today.
I will.
You are, the lady is a strong advocate for Fort Valley.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Carpenter, for bringing this bill and your work on this legislation. I was looking forward to voting on it today, but because we're not, my question to the chairman, you referenced legal status, and you also referenced something legally coming up from the federal courts in June. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what's expecting to come forth this summer?
Yeah, well, I'll try, and I know we have someone from the university, right? Aren't you? If you could come forward and help me with just to make sure I don't misspeak in my legal terms,
okay.
or the learned attorney Walker, the legal presence is what DACA gives these folks. They are legal. DACA expressly gives legal presence. You're okay to be in the case. It was ruled in federal court last year, and perhaps one of you two can tell me the case, but that does not infer legal status. Is that correct? I'm going to turn you on. So if you would just identify yourself, because I know you were the...
My name is Chris McGraw. I'm an Associate Vice Chancellor for Legal Affairs with the Board of Regents. Legal status and legal presence are two phrases that get used interchangeably quite a bit, and to actually, frankly, sort out the legal significance of each is pretty difficult to do because they get tossed around so frequently in exchange for each other. The gist of DACA, though, is that regardless of the individual's legal status or lack thereof in the country, the federal government has made a decision to defer any action against their status, defer any action to remove them from the country. It does not, as far as state law goes, necessarily change their status legally. It's a decision by the federal government not to take any action about that status, at least for the time being. I don't know if that clarified your question at all.
It does, and I guess the question before the court in June is going on between whether that deferred action will continue or not, or will be expanded, correct?
Yeah, there's a case pending before the United States Supreme Court, and I did not know that would come up today, and honestly didn't review it before I got here, but my understanding is that case involves whether or not the Trump administration may go forward with rescinding the DACA protections, or whether the way it went about trying to do that was appropriate under federal administrative law, is my understanding. And if, you may know differently, but that's my understanding.
Barrister Carpenter.
Okay, well, let's start with this. I don't think at any point they've given DACA recipients have received legal status in the United States. They have the deferment that he spoke of means that they can lawfully be present in the United States. Never once has there been a question about whether they have legal status or not. Simply that we are allowing them to lawfully be present in the United States so that they can get a driver's license and work. The motion that's before the Supreme Court is not whether or not Trump can rescind the DACA memo. It is saying the manner in which he did it was that appropriate. So after that court case, they can either say yes, the manner was appropriate, and he's the president and he can do what he wants to do, and then they can at that point end the program. Or they can say no, it was not, and then Trump can come up the next week and say, I'm canceling this program as a policy of my presidency. We've had a policy change in the presidency, and I'm rescinding the program. At that point, DACA recipients are no longer lawfully present in the United States. And so that's why I put that piece in this bill that said if the federal government or the Supreme Court declares these folks not lawfully present, then the Board of Regents would not be required to offer them in-state tuition. So if nothing changes, then they will. If the decision that we've talked about in June occurs, then this bill is null and void. And that's why I put that in there.
Thank you.
Good.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Thank you. Number 23.
Chairman, I just want to
Chairman.
thank the author of this bill for his bringing something that's really important to this committee. I mean, we found an avenue where we could perhaps work legally within a system which is, we all know, is terribly fraught with problems, and we're continued to be disappointed that the federal government doesn't do something. But this did allow us to do something. So I guess like some others, terribly disappointed that we don't have a chance to vote on this, because we need to make these educational opportunities available to young people who have gone through our public system and deserve to get higher education, in my opinion. So thank you again. It's wonderful to have a bipartisan bill that I'm sure we could get bipartisan support for. So thank you again for doing this.
Hey, thank you. And I think it's important to address that we do things down here sometimes that conflict with what the feds are saying. I mean, Gravely's marijuana bill that we dealt with for 2 or 3 years, you know, definitely the state passed laws that may be conflicted with the way the feds are dealing with things. And I think sometimes that's the way I look at it is, you know, I understand that we don't want to get into the federal government's business, but sometimes when the federal government doesn't take care of business, then he leaves us no avenue to deal with issues. And that's what this bill had hoped to do, is saying, look, you know, I get it. You know, I understand the frustration, but good policy should be good policy, and that's the rub, right? And how do you get around it? Because we can't force him to do anything at this point. So,
Further questions, the author. Further questions. If there are no further questions, I have no additional questions, no additional lights up. I mean, tell you, I thank you for bringing the bill. I understand that. We do. I feel the situation, and I'll tell you again, the reason that the chair's in this situation is I am remiss to pass something that's going to put our university system employees, in order to verify whether your status in the state, they would have to find out if you're legally present, if you have a legal status, and then we would basically be telling them to know it. We would put them in a position in order to do that, and then not report someone that was perhaps, you know, in violation of federal law. As this goes forward in June, it is the chair's opinion that there will be movement on that, regardless of what the high court decides by the administration, and we will be in a position, if this group wishes to develop a policy toward what we think we will get should legal status be conferred on a section of folks. I just want to be very careful, as we have heard in this bill. The people that, I like this section, I want to add this section, these folks should be added. I want to be careful that in trying to do this, again, the House Higher Ed Committee doesn't create immigration policy on the fly. That should be a federal point of focus, and create perhaps equal protection issues that we think we're doing one thing, and by doing that, we've expanded it to something else. So we'll take it under advisement. I think many people wanted to vote on this today. There are probably other people, you know, in our body on both sides of the aisle that would be mad at me for hearing it today. So I have tried to be fair, you know, about doing that, and we will continue to look forward. That's my commitment. I had one more. Number 10, Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to prolong this committee, and I really do appreciate your approach to this and your caution with it. But I just want to tell the author I really appreciate bringing this bill, the intent of it. I've had firsthand look at the benefits of education and keeping these families here. I had 2 young men 30 years ago come to this country illegally with their family, and they got legal status and worked hard and got their citizenship. and their young children came through our K through 12 and all went on to higher education and are legally employed, and they are legal citizens, all of them are, and but education has just been really key for those young children, these two men that work for me today that I could not run my farm without. And it's just a real thing that does something to me when I see success and people work hard and want an education and do that. So thank you for this bill.
Okay. Did you want to provide us with any parting words of wisdom?
No,
Representative Carter? I appreciate you today.
Yeah, I appreciate you, and we'll see how it all goes. Thank you.
Thank you. See no other business for the committee. We'll stand adjourned without objection. I thank the committee for the long hours. No objection. We are adjourned.